Hello, hello. Happy Sunday, folks. It is Sharla K coming live to you guys with another Forever Friends Academy episode. How are you guys doing? Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are having a restful weekend. It has been both restful and productive weekend for me, which I'm super happy about. I'm happy about, and I think I've liked this weekend because I have new creative energy and I have, started practicing my vocals and building my craft. So I'm in a good season right now, in a good space. So I hope you guys are too. Let me introduce myself for anyone new who might be checking out the podcast, which I always say I would absolutely love. Welcome. My name is Sharla Kornegay. I'm an author, recording artist, creator of Interact Coaching and Forever Friends Academy, which is my subscription-based group relationship coaching that I do. The show is named and titled the same. And basically, here, what you'll get from me is inspiration and love. We talk about all relationship topics. I wanted to create an authentic and a safe space to talk about relationship topics. One, so people feel like and know and realize that they're not alone dealing with a lot of the things that they're dealing with within their relationships. And then most importantly is to be, an advocate for love, and that true love that lasts a lifetime, most definitely still exists. And that if you're out there and you are hoping that it finds you, or you're searching for it, that you to continue, and that it will come to you and find you if you leave yourself in an open space for it. And that beyond finding your just right match, I just am a firm believer that we are here. We're purposed here to give and receive love, and to give and pour out of ourselves with the gifts and talents and skills that God has given us. And that's really the main purpose. So I like to introduce topics and principles that go beyond the scope of just intimate marital relationships, but that you can apply it to so many other areas, right? So many other relationship dynamics that we all are in, right? That we are a part of many different communities, right? So your friends, your working co-workers, working space, familiar relationships. So that's my goal. So hopefully you'll hear something that resonates with you. Hopefully you'll hear something tonight that you're like, oh, you know what? I never thought of it in that way, but you know what? I can apply that. So that's my main goal. Whether you're listening to my podcast, I also am an author. I've written 2 books, one titled Life in Color, and my second book is titled 7 Stages of Love and Relationships, the Fundamentals of Relationship Development. So feel free if you want to check out any of that. If you're on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, click on the website link in the description. If you're on IG, click on the link in my bio, and you'll be able to get there and be able to check out the book, check out some snippets from my group coaching. And yeah, so if you want to check out any of my music, I am a singer. I write my own original music. I put out release my music on all platforms. So go to your favorite place that you like to listen to music, whether it's Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, etc. And hopefully take a listen to Sharla K, and hopefully you'll like some of the music that you hear. It pretty much you'll get the same thing that you get here, which is love and inspiration. I like to say that in music, actually I was just watching, and this I'm just thinking because it just came to my head as I'm about to make this statement to you guys. I was just watching yesterday the Toni Braxton, her life biopic, the one that came out on Lifetime. I think I'm just coming across it, but I think it was released a while ago. And one of the things that stood out to me in that movie was that her producers that she worked with, Babyface and L.A. Reid, the record label she was on when she first came into the industry, she has such a beautiful, beautiful voice and beautiful tone. And the image that, or at least the vocal impact that they said she will make is to basically sell pain. Like you'll hear the heart-wrenching pain in the music that she sings, which brilliantly, by the way. They definitely branded her in a beautiful way, and I think the rich tone of her voice definitely came across in that way. But I like to say with me and my music, it's like the opposite, because I think, at least for me, when I listen to, and don't get me wrong, there are other songs that have more of a positive connotation. But when it comes to like R&B and certain music, I think there is, right, an advantage in singing about heartbreak and pain because it's relatable to people. And for me, I'm like the opposite, where I feel like I'm filling in the space where I'm selling love and inspiration, and belief in having a love that lasts a lifetime. So that even comes across in my music, and I'm hoping that if you do take a moment to listen to it, that you'll see there too that same thing. The message that I have here on my podcast translates in my music as well, because everywhere I go, there I am. So the messages that are really passionate to me, those are the things that I like to. And don't get me wrong, I have some songs, I don't know if they're heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, heartbreak songs, but there are songs about where you meet somebody and you realize it's not, you guys weren't a match, or it might be a song letting someone know that I want to connect to them for real rather than necessarily it be some kind of like fluff. So I have songs like that, but I think majority of my songs are inspirational themed and definitely will, hopefully, the impact will be for someone to believe that love is possible for them. So enough about me. Right. So that's the whole spiel about who I am in regards to the coaching as well as the music. And tonight is Sunday relationship scenarios. So every Sunday, most of the time, unless the wind blows in the other direction, and maybe I get inspired by something else, and I'll bring up a different topic to you guys. But normatively, every Sunday, I bring up a scenario where I present it to you guys. You act like you're the coach, you're the therapist, etc. And then we get to extract some principles from it without us being in it, and being emotionally compromised and everything else that often comes when, we're facing conflict or challenge in a relationship. So we're definitely going to get to that tonight, but I am going to start with a quote like I usually most of the times do. And I came across a really great article. I always like to give the flowers to those, any articles or any quotes or anything that come by. And I like to give the people their due, for being in a space to hear and be able to translate messages to us. So this is coming from an article from a website called markandangel.com. It's called Mark and Angel Hack Life. And the title of the article is 40 Meaningful Questions to Calm the Mind and Boost Your Focus, which I'm always looking for something, in regards to that one, because I coach, so any kind of useful resources or tools, one, I can give myself that then I can also transfer to my clients. I'm always looking for that. So I came across the article and I thought it was really, really good. So I wanted to, share it with you guys tonight. And I always am an advocate about asking the right questions, starting with yourself, asking yourself the right questions. And then, of course, definitely if you're on the dating scene or just getting to know someone or developing friendships, you do want to ask the right questions. That's like, I don't know if it's half the battle or more than half the battle, asking the right questions when it comes up to that. So I think this article was very much heavily centered on that, and some of the questions that they posed I thought was really, really good. So I think I'm going to use some of their questions at the top of the podcast and, give to you guys to see what your thoughts are on it. So I'm going to pop that out to you guys, and then we'll get into the scenario for tonight. Do, 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 do. And I'm just giving a little moment because I'm trying to see if I get some more folks on here with me before I throw it out, because usually I get some folks coming in, then I, always repeat it. So I'm just giving a little bit moment to see if I get some more folks on here before I put it out to you guys tonight. And I guess what I'll do while I'm waiting to see if I get some more folks on here with me is what I'll do is I'll review a little bit of what we were talking about on our last session, and then we'll see. And then I'll pose the, present the quote to you guys and the question for tonight. So our last session, what we were talking about is basically we were continuing the conversation that I started on our previous podcast before that, where we were talking about the quote, when I'm not consuming, I'm creating. And we're talking about top things that you can create with your partner, and just being in the space of switching over into just constantly, I guess, not managing what you're consuming so that you can, preserve the energy that you have to create. And we applied that to basically not being stuck in repetitive negative patterns in your relationship that really, keep us stuck and set us back, so that we don't have the energy to think about what we can actually create with our partners. So that's basically, to summarize it in the most concise way, what we were talking about our last session. Hey, Joss Flakes, thank you for popping in. Welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time, thank you for popping in. So I'm going to put out the quote for tonight and the question for tonight. So the quote for tonight comes from that same article from the website that I was telling you guys about, markandangel.com. And so let me know what your thoughts are on this quote, all right, or statement, I should say. I don't know if it's a statement that I got from the article. So it goes like this: constraints drive creativity and force mindful thinking. It may sound counterintuitive at first, but in a backwards way, you break out of the box by stepping into the right shackles. All right, let me say that again because it's a long statement. Just so that, you guys can kind of, hear it again. So the statement goes like this: constraints drive creativity and force mindful thinking. Definitely want to know what your thoughts are about that, because it definitely sounds like, as the next statement says, that it's counterintuitive. It may sound counterintuitive at first, but in a backwards way, you break out of the box by stepping into the right shackles. That's the quote statement for tonight. Let me know what your thoughts are. First of all, on that first part, constraints drive creativity and force mindful thinking. And then also, particularly that last part of the statement where it says, in some backwards way, you break out of the box by stepping into the right shackles. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Let me know what what do you think about that? So I'm going to give you a moment, see if I get some answers on that, and then I will introduce the question for tonight. Constraints drive creativity. That part definitely stuck out to me when I first read that statement. So just in case, If there's anybody new popping in, let me say the statement for tonight. I'm just giving a moment, just in case you came in and be like, she is not talking. I'm just giving a moment to see if I get some response, because I read a statement from an article tonight, and it is the statement for tonight. I don't want to call it a quote because I think it's way too long for me to state it as a quote. So I will repeat it for anyone new coming in, just to see if I can get your thoughts on it. All right. And the statement goes like this: constraints drive creativity and force mindful thinking. It may sound counterintuitive at first, but in a backwards way, you break out of the box by stepping into the right shackles. So that is the interesting statement. At least I think it's interesting for tonight. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are. And the question for tonight, while I see if you guys have any thoughts on that statement, the question for tonight is, what will you never give up on? What will you never give up on? What will you never give up on? And again, for anyone new coming in, the question and the statement for tonight is coming from an article that I came across. And the title of the article is 40 Meaningful Questions to Calm the Mind and Boost Your Focus. I got it from Mark, M-A-R-C, and angel.com. So it's definitely worth every minute of your read. So if you want to check it out. A key part of the message of the article is asking the right questions. So that was one of the questions from the article, and I definitely think that's a right question to ask. It's like, what will you never give up on? You know, I think it's definitely a question that we should keep at the center of our lives. Every moment we can kind of recall back to ourselves or self-reflect on what we will not give up on, because I think there's so many moments in life where you just fall into, maybe seasons where you feel like you want to give up, or seasons of doubt. And so just having something, whether it's written somewhere where you can put it and you can see it all the time, of knowing that these are the things that you won't give up on, and that kind of reappropriate whatever, allow that truth to reappropriate whatever emotions that you're dealing with. So that's the question for tonight. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are on the statement as well as the question, while I'm waiting for you guys, because I know sometimes it takes a while to type, and Lord knows I am very grateful for you guys taking out the time to do that. I'll share my thoughts, and then, of course, as always, if you have any comments, and let me make sure I'm not missing any. Let me just check, just to make sure. Okay, I did. I'm so glad I checked, because I was missing I was missing feedback. So, oh my goodness, Kendra, I don't know if you're still on here. Hi, love. Thank you for popping in with me. So Kendra says, this statement definitely makes you think about where you are in your life and helps you have a new vision. I like that. Let me add Kendra's statement. I love that. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, Kendra. Definitely like I said, the part that stood out to me was constraints. The idea of constraints driving creativity, because in your head, at least, let me not say in my head, you would think that would be the complete opposite. You think of, like, at least for me, when I think of a creative soul and me being a creative and knowing it's such a sensitive, delicate, at least process for me, to be in the right spice. That's the Jamaican in me. The right space to create something, that you feel really came, from you, through you, etc. That I think every creative, whether you're a singer, artist, musician, you know when you hear it. You know that, okay, this thing freely flowed through me, and I'm so glad that in some kind of moment in time that I was able to kind of align and then hear directly what for me, definitely what God gave me to give to the world. And it's sometimes it's hard because if I don't feel like I'm in the proper space, it's hard to kind of, tune into that. And I don't ever think of constraint in that way. But hearing it and reading it, I was like, I totally get it, though. I understand because it reminds me of what we were talking about. She said, I like the spice better, LOL. Oh, no. I appreciate you. I, now she got me all off. Reading that. No, what I was going to say is it reminds me of what we were talking about in the last podcast about when I am consuming, I'm not creating. And so when I thought about constraints from that perspective, definitely for me, right, how I manage, right, that's a constraint. If I'm practicing discipline and consistency on how I manage what I intake, then that powers my creativity, right? If I am focused and intentional about what I am putting, how I'm feeding my soul, my mind, my being, that those constraints that I put on myself help to allow my creativity to flow, right? Versus if I don't and I mismanage it, or I am intaking things that aren't really proper fuel for me for the thing that I want to create, then yeah, it's like you literally get out of the box, as the statement said, by stepping into another shackle, and you guys always hear me present different quotes, and maybe at first you'll be like, okay, Charlotte, well, what does this have to do anything with relationships though? And I always like to introduce principles that are not necessarily just restricted to marital relationships, even though this podcast is definitely for people who want to develop relationships that last a lifetime and not just for a season and a once moment type of thing. However, I stay true to fundamental godly principles that cover everything. So I know definitely experiencing in my life that there are times where the only way that I can get out of the box that I created, oftentimes my own self, right? Whether it was my own doubt, my own fear, my own things that I, put upon myself, or maybe just environmental conditioning and things like that. The only way that I was able to break free out of those was to actually step into, like it said, the right shackle. And maybe for those of you who are listening who are believers can probably connect to it in this way, because I know that's definitely what I thought about when I read was, being a servant of Christ or a slave to Christ in that way, right? And so when you do that, there are so many things that you kind of arrange your life in a very disciplined way to I guess be Christ-like in that way, and you in a way, right? That's kind of constraint, but in the most beautiful, at least for me, most beautiful and miraculous way, it afforded me to break out of so many different boxes that I had imposed upon myself, or was imposed upon me by things that, I allowed to either penetrate me, and then curating my life and applying this discipline and consistency then afforded so much freedom, but the freedom definitely directly came from what I now chose intentionally and consciously to shackle myself to, right? To submit myself to. So those are the things that definitely that statement made me think about. And when it comes to relationships, I'm sure anybody who's either been single before, which that's all of us, I think, right? Or if you have single friends, or if you've heard people have conversations where, they think about, or they're resistant to it, and they think about, what they're going to have to give up and things like that. Like maybe if you're a young woman, because I definitely heard conversations like this before getting married to Ben, where there were conversations like, okay, you're gonna, once you get married, you give up so much. And sometimes it was a negative outlook on it, thinking like you're going to give up so much of your freedom to now be with this person. And then forget about it. If you have kids, then, As a woman, it's like they almost made it feel like your life was going to be over. Hey, Raven. Oh my gosh. How are you? Beautiful. Thank you for popping in. Right. And definitely I've definitely heard it on the other side too, where men talk about where they're resistant to getting married because of the same thing, right? You lose this freedom, quote unquote. And, that's why I think that the statement that I read applies in the same way because, yes, is it going to change the dynamic of your life? Yes, because you are no longer just individually, this individual person. You're now a part of a collective team. And so, yeah, your movements is going to require harmony and to be in sync with each other and to be the narrative to be interwoven. I just read a statement by one of my favorites. I don't know what to call him, philosopher, therapist, etc. Jordan Peterson, where he wrote that the narrative of you and your spouse should be so interwoven like a rope. You need to have the same narrative about each other because when you don't, it becomes, slowly a real issue in the relationship because the story that's being told is not aligned. And so therefore, if the narrative is not together, then you can't move forward. And so in that same way, the narrative, is there are certain things that are going to change, but it's going to change for the better, not necessarily that it's going to be where you're like, "Ugh, my freedom is completely done and I can't do anything else, in life except for just, now I'm a married person and this is what my purpose is." It's not that. You actually get more freedom by I guess, what's the best way I can put it? By what you choose to, now I don't want to say shackle because it's going to make people run, but it's true. What you choose to, yoke yourself together as partners in this lifetime, right? And that's going to take the blending and the gelling and the harmonizing of you too. So yeah, there is a collective identity that is created by shedding the individual identity. Doesn't mean you're no longer an individual, but you do, how do I put this? It is to your advantage to submit to the truth that when you come together, it's now a team, and that team must learn how to play as one to be able to elevate and go to the next phase and next stage. And that whatever freedom you think you are giving up, it will not amount or will not be better than the freedom that you're coming into because now, right, your strengths, or the union makes the picture clearer. It makes the life easier. It's supposed to make life easier when you have two people working together because now one person doesn't have to do everything by themselves. So yes, you do give up certain things, but only to elevate into a greater experience and aspect, of your relationship and elevation. So that's how I saw that it tied into relationships with that quote, because it's true. The constraints really do drive creativity. I'm just thinking and I think I was just having this conversation with someone, and I've heard this quote before, but I just came across it, and I think it was a pastor that was saying it recently. And you guys let me know if you've heard this quote before, but I've heard it many different times from different people. I don't know who to give credit to, who said it first, but the pastor was saying basically that he heard it was said like this, that it doesn't take a real man to date 100 women. It takes a real man, right, to be able to, love and stay committed and learn how to love, the same woman as she 100 different versions of his wife, basically, of the same woman. I was like, that's pretty. I know we change, but 100. That's a side note. It just made me chuckle a little bit, but I totally got the statement, right? Is that, sometimes you think, and I was saying that because I just had a conversation with someone in regards to that same type of topic, where it's like, okay, you feel like as a man you're free and you get to date all these different women and things like that. But, I was telling that person that really that cycle, you see it, my husband likes to call it like when the devil has certain cycles and repetitive, like he's just like a one trick pony. So in life, and I guess because, our humanity, the things that we are challenged with and the things that we struggle with, they're like I said, they're kind of, they're not new. You might feel like you're going through it by yourself, but if you go out and you venture and you talk to other people in your community, you'll see that some of the same challenges that you're going through, they're going through too, And so for him, I was telling the gentleman, like, yeah, that might sound like it's fun. Like you date 100 women and you have sex with all of these women and you feel like you're exploring, but it really takes a lot of energy from that man to be able to pour out and be great and cultivate, what he wants in his vision. You talk to, certain men who get to a point of understanding that, and they really say it just becomes a distraction. And you will find those men who find a wife, a compatible, a good, God-fearing, let me put that out there, God-fearing woman who can partner up with them and support the vision and things like that, then that just brings a certain amount of ease to their life, because they know that that woman is not just there for their money, not there for, other futile things, but genuinely, earnestly loves him. Then that part of his mind is at ease, so he doesn't have to take up energy to try to figure that out, and so he can just go forth, And I think the same thing on the other end, when a woman finds a good God-fearing man, that also, that security, that stability, that knowing that he's there, also frees up her mind to now, blossom and think about other things. So that's how that quote and statement kind of translated to me, and I definitely see the truth in it. I don't think you can talk to anybody, whether it's them building a business, whether it's them cultivating a skill or a craft, or in the area of relationships, that definitely, if you ask them, what kind of constraints that you have to either place upon yourself or within the dynamic of your relationships, and how did that afford you? What did that afford the relationship? I think they would be able to tell you some of the things that they did apply and how it fueled either their ability to come together and co-create together and fuel the creativity of the business that they're building, or fuel the creativity of their craft. So I absolutely love the statement. You guys let me know, definitely, if you're listening now or catching the replay, let me know what your thoughts are. And the question for tonight that I put out for you guys, let me know. I don't think I have any. Let me just double check like I did the last time, because I definitely was missing. Kendra, I'm glad that I did it. Okay, I didn't miss anything yet. The question for tonight is, what will you never give up on? What will you never give up on? Such a good question to ask yourselves. Yeah, what will you never give up on? So I'll answer it while I'm waiting to see if you guys will give me answers. Well, definitely, number one, I'm never going to give up on God, believing in God, believing in love. That's tethered for me, because God is love. So I'm never going to give up on that. I'm never going to give up on being an advocate for love, for truth. I'm definitely never going to give up on my husband, and having faith in who he is and who God is, still cultivating him to become. Never going to give up on believing in my children and their capacity to be great in life and their capacity to, excuse me, their capacity to, navigate this life and navigate the challenges. And so I'm never going to give up on that. I'm definitely never going to give up on myself. And meaning, when I say never give up on myself, is no matter the ebbs and flows that come with pursuing, I don't even know if I want to say pursuing, I will say creating and living out my purpose. No matter the ebbs and flows that come with that and the challenges, I refuse to give up on just saying I'm not doing it. Like, you know, I think even moments when it comes to my head and the thought of not doing it because maybe I'm not, feeling like I'm getting, or expanding or getting the range of audience or et cetera, however it comes. Even if I have a moment where it tries to settle in my mind, I know that I would ultimately be very miserable if I ever even, chose to truly follow through with that. So those are some things that I definitely will never give up on. Hey, McKee, Tori, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but welcome to the podcast. We were just talking about a question that I put out tonight, so feel free to chime in if you want to. And the question is, what will you never give up on? What will you never give up on is the question that I was just answering before you came in. And I put out a statement earlier on. Tori, okay, thank you. If it's your first time on the show, I'm not sure, but if it is, welcome. I also put out a statement about constraints drive creativity, and that it takes, in some kind of backwards way, it takes for you to get out of the box, whether it's the box that you put yourself in, your own being crippled by, a limited mind state, etc., that it takes you going into the right shackles. So that's what we're talking about as well. So feel free to comment on any of that. Oh, thank you. It is your first time. I love that. I love newcomers. So welcome. Hopefully you'll hear something tonight that you like that will make you come back. We just talk about all relationship topics here. I am a author, relationship coach, and a music artist, a performer. But this is my podcast, so we talk about all relationship topics. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And now I am going to dive into the scenario because I gave you guys the quote, gave you the question for tonight. What will you not give up on? So feel free, even if I move on to the scenario, if you're letting it marinate and you're thinking about the question, type your answers, and I definitely will most definitely take a moment to read your answers. But we're going to dive into the scenario tonight because I'm so curious to see what your thoughts are on this scenario, right? So tonight's scenario involves an engaged couple. All right, they recently just got engaged. Let's just say they have been engaged now for about, just say, well, I guess that's not recently. I don't know. Some people have very long engagements, so you never know. So I'm just going to say a year. They've been engaged for a year, but they've been going out for pretty much like 2.5 years now. So pretty much, he knew, it didn't take too long for him to know that, okay, this is the woman for me, right? So in the scenario, unfortunately, she calls her fiance kind of in a panic because she was done with her work day. She had parked her car. She went to, go back to her car to go home, and her car is not there, right? Her car is not there. She thinks that the car has been stolen, right? Because when she looks down, she sees a little bit of broken glass and things like that. and her car's not there. So she calls him kind of in a panic, and, he tells you, like, okay, no, calm down. It's all right. We're going to, do what we need to do. And she's like, okay, well, we got to, call the police. I called you first so that we can figure out what to do. But I know we need to, I really do think it was stolen and we need to call the police immediately. He's like, oh, no, no, no. Before we do that, I have something that I can do because, I actually a year ago put a tracker on your car. So I can actually go in and be able to see, to find if it is stolen and the whereabouts. And so at first she's like a little shocked because this is the first time she's hearing about it. She didn't know that he put a tracker on her car, right? And so he tells her to hold on. He goes and do whatever process that he needs to do. And he basically locates her car and he sees where it is. And so, he tells her that basically, we can, call the police now because we've located where it is and they'll be able to go and find it and locate her car and then we can retrieve it. And so she's kind of relieved, but yet not really, because now she's like, you put a tracker in my car and never told me about it. And I don't know why you didn't tell me. Did you not think that I needed to know something like that? So, right? So go through the situation. They get the car back, but she can't shake the thought of just, I guess, her emotions that are coming along with it, of just feeling a little unsettled as to why he would have done that and not tell her. So they go to a therapist or a coach, etc., just to talk about the situation. And she explains that this, him doing that and not telling her is causing some uncomfortability because it's like, okay, did you not trust me? Why were you trying? Why did you feel like that was necessary? And for him, his response to her is like, no, I put it on you for moments like this, that if something, was to happen, and thank God you weren't in the car and that they just took the car. But it was for moments like where if there was a dire emergency that I would be able to locate you. And when I put it on, I was busy. It was a while ago. It was about a year ago that I did it. So honestly, I don't really remember or recall why I didn't, tell you. Maybe I was just like doing work and I just came to my head, thought to do it and did it. And then that was it. But it's not like I've, been trying to track you everywhere you go. It literally was just for emergency situations like this. And I don't understand why I'm being penalized because it actually worked and we did need it in the future. And thank God you're not hurt. But then we were able to retrieve the car and it did exactly what I intended it to do. So I don't understand why I'm being penalized for actually thinking forward, for being forward thinking. And there hasn't been anything else in the relationship where you feel like, you can't trust me, or that I've, come across that I can't trust you or anything like that. It's just, this is kind of just the way that my mind works and how I think, I kind of think forward and try to solve problems that don't exist yet, So in my mind, that's what I was doing there. It's nothing to say I didn't trust you or, or that even that I intentionally just kind of didn't tell you. So that's what he says to her, right? So that's where they are. She's trying to figure out if this is something that should put a pause button, maybe a pause on the engagement, or even maybe to the point of like maybe calling off the engagement. And he's like, you're overreacting. It's not that serious. And it literally, what I did literally saved the day. So why should it, I don't understand why you're responding in this way instead of kind of responding with gratitude. So that's the scenario, guys. Hey, my beautiful niece is on here. Hey, Rafi, how are you, darling? Yeah. So that's the scenario, guys. I'm trying to, I know it's kind of long. Let me try to surmise it for you guys again, all right? Engaged couple. They're engaged for about a year now. They've been together in totality for about 2.5, going on 3 years, okay? Situation happens. Well, she's not the wife yet. Fiance car got stolen, right? And she calls him in a panic, says, "Oh my gosh, I think my car was stolen," because she sees the glass on the floor, right? And she's like, "Okay, I wanted to call you first, but I think we should definitely call the police." He says, "Hold on that. Wait a minute. Pause, because actually a year ago I put a tracker on your car, you know, for just in case something like this happened," right? He tells her, "Hold on real quick," because he's going to go through whatever process and service that he has to go through to locate the car. So she's like a little relieved, but absolutely shocked because it's the first time her hearing that he put a tracker on her car without her knowing. Right? So he finds the car, he locates it, then he says, "Okay, we can tell the police exactly where it is, etc. They can retrieve it." She's relieved that they can get the car, but uncomfortable with the idea that she's just finding out now that it's been a year that he's put a tracker on her car and did not tell her. And so that brings them into their session with their therapist or coach, etc. And she's wondering, do I have to be concerned? Do I have to be worried that he just chose to not tell me that he put a tracker on my car and it's been a year now? I'm thinking, what is going on, right? Did he not trust me? Did he want to track me for, why would he not want to tell me that? And he's like, "You're making too much of a big deal out of this. It literally was for emergency moments. And it literally saved the day to the point that we were able to get your car back. And thank God you weren't in the car, but it was for moments if by some chance some kind of dangerous emergency happened." And honestly, it's been a year ago and we've been handling so many different things that I honestly can't say that I intentionally meant to withhold that information. I think there were just a lot of things going on. I think it just came to my mind as I was working and I put it there and then I just forgot about it. But our relationship is good. It's strong. It wasn't something to harm me. It was something to protect and to, think forward and solve a problem before it even came into our space. And thank God I did, because it worked. So what do you think, guys? Where do you fall? Do you agree with the husband to be? Like, oh no, he was being calculative. And let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's just say he has a military background, so he kind of thinks in that way. I don't know if anybody have dealt with people who have been in the military or any kind of service. They, at least the people, and thank you, first of all, if you have served, our country, thank you for that. But the way that they think is very, like when they're in a room and they definitely do not think like just the regular layman type of, everyday person. So let's layer it there for the situation to see if that, switch any of your thoughts about it. So let me know what your thoughts. Are you with the woman? Do you think like, no, girl, run, Forrest, run, and don't look back? Because that's cray that he put a tracker on you and didn't tell you. And even if it's for your safety, I think you don't know what else is going to come up. So run, or maybe pause so you can kind of wait and see, if something else comes out there. Or are you like on the gentleman's side and just say, "Oh, he just really wanted to protect you, and this is just the way his mind thinks." And do you really believe the reasoning he gave, that it wasn't to intentionally not tell you, but I kind of just did it and things were going on and it's been like a year, so I can't even like really go back into to what happened as far as why it slipped my mind to tell you. So I have an answer. From Tori, he says, we are protectors. I enrolled my son in Life 360 to track if he got in a wreck. Okay. He's 19 and was glad I enrolled him in that. I'm on board as long as it's not a toxic relationship. Wow. So, wow. Who would have thought that I would actually have someone on the show that actually, right, did something similar to this, right? That's a great sign for me to know I was in the right direction. So I appreciate you coming on tonight just to give that type of real life, right? Because this is my imaginary scenario I came up with. Perspective. Now, when you did that for him, though, it sounds like you told him. So I think her issue in this scenario is that he did not tell her. He didn't say, babe, I'm thinking about enrolling you in such and such and such, he just did it. He did what he felt was necessary to protect from an unforeseen danger ahead that might happen. So would you say it's toxic in that way because he did not sit down and say, hey, babe, I think we should do this, and this will cover if such and such happens? Or do you think it's, no, it's still not toxic because his intention was to protect and not like he's trying to stalk her or anything like that? Or, I'm curious to know what your thought and perspective is on that. So, but interesting. I remember, and I can't remember what year I heard it was that they rolled out, especially for children, where you can have like, I don't know, it was a tracker you can put on your child to make sure, if they did, before God forbid, was taken or turned missing, there were trackers that you can put on your child that they were like very much in the mainstream media kind of propagating to see, if parents would want to do it. I remember that conversation. Oh, interesting. So Tori said no, he didn't know until he got in a wreck and I showed up. Wow. Okay, so literally the scenario is just like the imaginary scenario that I made up. Wow. Wow. Okay, so he had a completely different response from the woman in the scenario. He actually was grateful that you did it so that you could find him. I'm wondering, because your story dynamic is father and son. I'm wondering if her response, in the scenario is due to, because it's not father and son, it's I'm assuming that there's a certain embracing and receptivity that he has to you because of, you being his father in the way, clearly, that you're fathering him, that he trusts you in that way. So maybe in this situation, maybe is it that it's exposing, even though she's thinking, can I trust this person? Can I trust my fiance? Maybe is it her lack of, is it exposing a lack of trust or a lack of trust within her towards him, and embracing of his protection? You give me a whole different outlook now from it being someone who actually did something like this. In life, hey, Truth and Rhyme, how are you? So we and Diamond, hey, beautiful Diamond, thank you for popping in. So you guys came in on a scenario night. It's a long scenario, so I'm trying to see how I can throw it. It's literally a scenario that I put out, and I'm asking you guys to be the therapist and the coach. Basically, it's an engaged couple. They've been engaged for a year now. They've been almost together for almost 3 years. The future wife, fiance's car got stolen. She called her fiance in a panic. He says, it's okay, don't panic. I actually put a tracker on your car. Hold on, goes through the process, can locate the car, etc. They call the police, handles the situation. She's relieved that the situation is handled, but is startled that it was the first time her hearing that he put a tracker on her car, and she did not know. So they're in a therapy session, coaching session, etc., to talk about it. She is wondering whether I should put a pause on this engagement should I be concerned that he put a tracker without telling me? And the husband to be is like, no, you're really taking this too far. I really just did it to protect you in from something like this happening. And it wasn't really to intentionally, not tell you. I just did it. And, life went on. And it's a year ago. So I can't tell you in the moment, like, what I was thinking, whether I was trying to, really not intentionally not, let you know, or just, work day, things happen and the day just flowed out and I just put on there and I forgot about it. So that's where they are. So he's like, you're overreacting. I think you should be happy that it did what it was supposed to do as to why, and be glad that I did it because it solved the problem before the problem even came. And she's like, I'm not sure if this is revealing deeper either trust issues that I should have with you because you're not sharing things with me, etc. So let me know where your thoughts are. Tori says, if it's a controlling or toxic relationship, that would be a problem. I still think I would let her know. Okay, yeah, right. So I think that's where the pause is. Okay, so in that situation, I guess as a father, you're like, I don't really need to let my son know because it's my son. That's what I'm getting from you. Like, because that's my child, I have all authority and right, I guess, to go through whatever measures is necessary to protect them. Whereas in a relationship, in a partnership, are you saying it needs to, it needs to be talked about so that it's not appearing to be a controlling and toxic thing? Interesting. Yeah, this scenario can be very layered. When I thought about this scenario, because I actually saw a little snippet of, and it's completely different. The one that I saw was actually toxic, like what Tori was saying. It wasn't even a relationship. It was somebody who actually was unfortunately stalking this young lady. And I think her name was Jada Wada. I don't know. That is her name, Jada Wada. And she was on a podcast and she was saying that literally she was hosting an event and that someone had literally put a tracker under her car. And it was a person who was trying to message her in her, DMs. And she was ignoring that person and they would come to her shows. And yeah, they put a tracker in her car. And she said, thank God that, when they followed her, where the location where she was at was townhomes, so it wasn't like just a specific house, thank God, and it wasn't her main home, and so the person couldn't really know exactly what townhome to enter or where she was at, and she literally had friends calling her, and this person actually called her friends, to let them know, like, to tell her, call Jada and let her know I'm outside. Can you imagine? That's so scary. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, can you imagine? Like, and unfortunately, things like this happen, especially if you look at and hear stories about like human sex trafficking and things like that. Like, there are stories where you literally have to watch out, either people following you, or if they follow you, they sometimes, if you go out to the store, they'll put a tracker under your car to try to, follow you home. So sounds like the movies, right? But it actually is happening, right? And so that's where I kind of got a little bit of inspiration to kind of bring up the scenario to you guys tonight. So I understand both perspectives, and I'm really glad that Tori was on tonight, because just hearing someone's real life, situation and their intention and perspective behind it kind of gives it, even more of a layered understanding to the scenario. So I think I definitely would agree with Tori in that way. That definitely, if it's not a controlling situation, it's not a toxic relationship, and that there are no other pertinent signs that are coming up, and that the person definitely just wanted to protect you, that it's okay. I do think to streamline so that it doesn't come off in that way and it's not approached that way. That definitely, having the conversation and telling the person that I do think this is in your best interest, or our best interest, to make sure that you're safe, that it would have, you know, avoided. They would be able to avoid her feeling the uncomfortable feeling that she's feeling in it. But it definitely made me think about, my husband, because he has, my father-in-law has military background. He's a veteran, and so I think the way my husband's thinking, and he's very calculative in that way too. And certain things he'll think to put either certain things, certain places, and in ways that I would not necessarily think to do, and it covers certain bases, and I'm appreciative of that, So in that perspective, I can understand from the fiance's point, the male, the husband to be's point of view, of trying to literally resolve a problem before it comes or cover certain bases. But I definitely understand from her perspective as well, to want to be included, I guess, in it, in the conversation. But I do think in marriage, it's good to kind of take, especially to feel, not feel, but know, beyond feeling, because feelings come and go, but to know that the person that you are marrying, that you can trust their authority in that way, especially as a woman, towards her husband, to want to protect you. And I know people don't like the word quote unquote authority, but listen, guys, we live under authority all the time. Okay. You live in a country, it has government, you got police, you have, federal authorities. We submit to authorities every day. So let's not make it this like curse word when it comes into relationships. I talk about submission a lot on my podcast, and I say that it honestly just means to trust and rest assured in that person's divine authority from God to care for you. So as a woman, that's what you really want to look towards your husband as. And so in this case, and I think in every case, you want to feel assured, or to know and be assured and be able to be embracive of the authority to protect and provide for you that this person has, for your life. And so she definitely wants, it needs to be in a good space to know that, before going forward into marriage. So maybe not call it off, but, definitely take their time to, talk about the situation, you know, as best as possible, not to kind of stay stuck on it, but talk about it and then maybe leave space to not rush in to getting married, but just to see if maybe there are other things that come up. But if there's nothing else that comes up and it's truly was that he just was trying to keep her safe and protected, and say maybe from now on, if possible, right? Because we're humans, and as perfect as we would like it to be, there's certain things, there's actions that we take, that sometimes we don't necessarily consult one another. I think it's best if you do talk with each other and consult, but there's not always going to be space, that I can say every time that's what it's going to be. But you can have the conversation, say there's certain things, right, that I would like to, or have the opportunity to know and understand, what you're doing and where you're coming from. So that conversation can be had. But yeah. And here I was thinking I was coming up with like a Lifetime movie kind of situation. Like, this doesn't happen in life. And literally I come on tonight and somebody's like, yeah, I did that, so I so appreciate it. It kind of lets me know, okay, Charlie's in the right direction. Because what are the odds, right? How you come out of your imaginary hat, and then somebody actually come on the podcast with a literally legit the same situation, right? So I appreciate that. So yeah, that is my scenario for you guys tonight. Let me know if anybody else has other thoughts. Thank you again, Tori, for coming in, honestly, and being able to share your experience and what you did and, your son's response to it. I think I would have had the same response that your son did, most definitely, even if I didn't know, just to thank you for it. Because I remember, and my real life scenario or situation is nothing like this, so, but it made me think of a time where my husband hid he hides things so that as backups, like if I get locked out the house or something like that. And I didn't know where it was, but I was so thankful that he did, already think of it, let me know. So I wouldn't be locked out the house, right? But that's a that's a very light scenario compared to what I put on tonight. But in the same way, shoot, I think I would have just been grateful and thankful. But then again, that's also because I know I can totally trust him. And I know that he's looking out for my best benefit, even if it wasn't something that he, in that moment didn't take time out to consult me in doing. But, I trust him wholeheartedly, with my life, and that he's not going to do something to cause me harm, but to keep me safe, to do the absolute opposite. So, in a nutshell, in that relationship, that's the space and place that they would have to come to, with each other, where she'd have to see that clearly, or know that in her innermost being, to be able to be completely settled and embracive of what he did. And I totally get her, I guess, feeling that way, especially if, 3 years, it's still new. Any person who's been in a real, like long relationship, long marriages, people who have gone to like 30 years and things like that, the 3 years is still new, and figuring out each other and the dynamics of the relationship and things like that. Your feet still wet in the game, as they said. So, as they would say. So I understand her natural pause, and I think it's good that she exposed it in the situation, and that one thing he's willing to talk about it, right? I think a toxic sign would be him not even being willing to go in a session to talk about it and kind of air out the grievances and improve upon it. So I think I'm definitely going to go along with Tori's breakdown of the scenario and his perspective. I also have that same perspective. Like, if it's not a toxic type of controlling relationship where she's not seeing that it's coming up, she can kind of reflect back on the relationship. And, there's so many people that kind of have questions or of like, how do I know, right? How do I know if it's not a toxic relationship and it is like the opposite of like what Tori's saying, is somebody who just wants to protect her and things like that? I think you can look at the total cumulative sum of your relationship. I often phrase it that way to my clients. There are moments that we have in a relationship, and then there's like when you reflect on a grand scale, the total cumulative, I always mess that word up, sum of your relationship, meaning that when I look across, what's been consistent in my relationship, what can I say? Are we constantly going back and forth where I feel like, or not just feel, but like know really that, okay, these patterns continually come up. It's not just a moment. It is literally the sum of our relationship has been this toxic type of tug and war back and forth. Then if you look at the sum total of what the fruits, that's the best way I can put it. When you look at the sum total of the fruits that your relationship has been able to produce, if it's good natured, if it's goodness, if it's of growth, if it's of transformation in, an elevated direction, then great, right? That's fine. We can look at it and we can say that this is a moment, and let's handle this moment and let's appropriate this moment, right? And filter it through the cumulative total sum of the truth of what our relationship has been. Then that's not a toxic relationship. That's just a moment, and we have to appropriate our emotions in that moment so that we can, anchor ourselves into the things that we know we have been growing and doing that has produced great impact and effect in our relationship, right? But if the total sum is no, it has been. I have seen these signs coming up, and I don't want to dismiss them anymore. I don't want to ignore them anymore. Then then we cannot let this moment slide, because now it's not a moment, right? It's literally a part of this continuous, right, tug of war that we've been in. And so, no, that's going to take, all right, am I holding on to something that's not serving me? Am I, in denial? Am I in some kind of disillusionment? And then we have to kind of, self-reflect and break away from the things that is no longer serving us. So that's a way that you can know the difference between, okay, is this toxic, or is this, something that I'm just having strong emotions towards, and now I need to take that strong emotion and filter it through the truth and the nature of the love, and the truth within our relationship. That's a different thing, right? Welcome, Enid, and Stop, Lock, Drop, and Carmen Survivor. How are you guys doing? I think this is your first time to the podcast too. Welcome. Thank you for popping in. Tori says, I did share to some of my female friends. Okay. So I'm assuming you shared what you're saying, what you did for your son to your female friends. I'm assuming. I hope I'm I'm understanding that right. Let me know, and I would love to know what they thought about it. Did they think, And I think what's so interesting is that I can imagine if you shared to some of your women friends what you did, that they would be like okay in that, doing it in that way and outlook, because it's a child, a father to son. And sometimes I don't think that same type of, oh, you did? Okay. I'm so glad you told me, because I totally was spinning that wrong. No, he was saying he shared my live to your friends. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. I was about to say, because there's some names in here that I'm not familiar with. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, welcome. Any newcomers that we're here. I've been on here for a little bit of a while, but some of the things that we talked about, I put out a question, what will you not give up on? What will you never give up on was the question of the podcast. I usually have a quote and a question that I present in the top of the podcast before we get into either a scenario or a relationship topic. And so feel free to chime in on that if you want to. And we talked about earlier on how constraints drive creativity, and that how sometimes to jump out of one box or get out of the box, you have to literally, shackle yourself to the right things, basically. So that's some of the things that we were talking about earlier on, and how that relates to relationships of being able to, and I'm sure anybody who has gone through the process, whether you were single and dating and then got married, that I think you can talk to just about anyone, and you can either see shifts that they made before they entered into wanting to be in a long-term relationship or wanting to be in a marriage, there are certain things that you do have to put constraints on to say that you want to go in this, go in this pathway, basically. Or we also put it in the dynamics of either starting your own business or cultivating your craft, how that statement is true, how those constraints that you put on yourself, whether you want to call them discipline, time management, etc., how those constraints really fuel the creativity, because the freedom that we have is freedom that we get from being anchored into something, right? So it's not like this freedom where it's like total freedom and I'm not attached to anything or anyone. No, in life, it doesn't really work like that. It's whatever you consciously anchor yourself into will allow, right, and afford you more freedom in other areas. And so in life, when it comes to like relationships, and definitely if you want to go towards marriage and, navigate out of the single life, whatever that means to you, when you put certain constraints and you say, okay, this is, how I'm going to intentionally date or intentionally vet someone who I think could be a potential partner for me. And this episode is talking about asking the right questions and how that can be half the battle to be able to kind of hone in on a person's character and see if that character aligns with your character, and more importantly, aligns with the truth. How you're going to have to maybe stop doing certain things that aren't serving you in the direction that you want to go in, whether it's your business, whether it's relationships. And when you do that and you choose to say, okay, no, I think definitely a lifetime partnership is something I want. Commitment is something I definitely want. And I know that truthfully, certain things that I used to do, I can't do anymore in order to might actually develop a relationship like this. Then you anchor yourself in some of the fundamental principles that do help to cultivate healthy, thriving relationships, that the freedom that you get is coming from you being anchored, shackled to the right thing, right? And that gives you more freedom. I know a lot of people in the beginning, we talked about how people who are single sometimes think that when you get married, you just lose all your freedom, when it's really the opposite. Two is better than one. And that's a life principle, right? You have people who can walk together united is going to make more gains than one person walking by themselves. That's why there is no one singular person, that can make a movement, by themselves. I always say this quote that my husband told me he heard his professor say when he was going to work on his master's. And the professor said basically that if you call yourself a leader and you're outside walking, but no one else is following you, then you're just taking a walk. If you call yourself a leader, but nobody's following you, you're just outside taking a walk, right? Because the people have to be inspired by what the truth, the message, the truth in your message, be inspired by the passion you put towards it. And then the more people you have that can commit to that and align with that vision, then it becomes a massive movement, right? And then greater gains can be, made. So it's no difference in two people coming together in marriage, that you actually, the freedom that you get becomes greater, because now you have, instead of one individual have to take on every task, you have now teamwork, and with what that person, whatever their strengths are, that are complementary to your weaknesses, meaning that they're strong in it and maybe you're not so strong in it, they are able to take those things on, and that frees up energy and space in the hardwire of our brains and our existence to now work on other things. So you actually get more freedom out of that. So that's what we were talking about with the quote, and then you guys just came in on the ending of the scenario that I gave. So yeah, but good conversation tonight, guys. Good conversation. I totally appreciate all the newcomers coming in. I usually come on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday and Sunday evenings. And like I said, we talk about all relationship topics here, but I mainly try to introduce fundamental principles that you can apply to all of your relationship dynamics. So that means familial relationships, professional relationships, of course, intimate and marital relationships. But I always say, you know, relationships are the building block of everything we do here. There's no way to negate it. You definitely have a relationship with yourself. You definitely have a relationship with the family that you're thrust, automatically, assigned to when you get here. And then, of course, as we develop friendships, professional relationships, develop in intimate relationships, and no one can really negate that process. Even if you're a person who says, oh, I have given my life just to God and I'm not doing the intimate relationship area, that's fine. But that's only one area of relationships. There's so many other areas that we exist in. So we can't really negate the process. So I'm a firm believer that I don't believe that God would make us completely just aloof about it, or, not give us fundamental principles that we can put as a foundation to develop our relationships on. It doesn't mean that our relationships are going to unfold, the same all around. No, it doesn't mean that, but you can still use the foundational tools and apply it in the seasons that you are in your life, So that's what I introduce here. And yeah, so thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming in. I always leave the end of the podcast. If you have any relationship questions that you have, doesn't have to be with the topic that I brought tonight. It can be your own question that you have. I'll definitely try to answer in the best of my ability, to the best of my ability. And if I feel like, okay, let me marinate on this a little bit, let me research more, and then I will bring it up on the next show. So feel free. I'm going to give a pause, a moment to see if anybody has any questions for tonight. And while I wait on you guys to see if there's any questions, definitely, if you are new, which there was a lot of new people that came in tonight, which I so appreciate. You can be anywhere in the world. So I'm glad that you popped in to stop in for a moment or for the whole podcast. I really, truly am grateful, because your time, your energy, some of the most precious resources in life. So I don't take that lightly. So I appreciate it. If you want to tune in more, most definitely you can go to my YouTube channel. It's titled after the podcast, Forever Friends Academy. And definitely, if you feel like this is good content, I'd appreciate it if you, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, etc., to get, spread it as Tori did, which I'm so appreciative of tonight, to anyone who you think would benefit from conversations like these. So I appreciate it. And if you want to check out, like I said in the beginning, any of my music, because I'm also an artist, a singer, songwriter. On stage, I go by Sharla K, Sharlak. Go on any platform of your choice, and you'll find my music there. And hopefully you'll find some songs that resonate, to you. So I am working on, interconnecting both of what I do, the coaching and the music, and, bringing some live performance to you guys before I get into the topics of, the night when I come on. So I'm working on that. So we'll see, polish my gift before I present that to you guys. But I appreciate you all tonight, everyone that came in. Kendra, Truth and Rhyme, Tori, Carmen, Enid, Raven, Josh Flakes, my beautiful niece Rafi, Curtis, all of the people who came in. Kendra, I'm sorry if I'm missing your name. I appreciate Diamond, all of you guys who came in. I appreciate you tonight. So let me see. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Because I don't want to do that, especially if you took time out to write it. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, I don't think I am. Let me double check. Okay, no, I don't see any questions so far. Okay, so tonight it's a wrap, folks. Thank you for everyone who came in and popped in and listened, all your feedback and typing, etc. I hope you guys have a good night, and maybe for those of you who have to work tomorrow morning, definitely have a good start to your week, and hopefully you'll be back with me Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, as I always like to say, always remember to live to love freely. Until next time. All right, have a good night, folks. Bye.